Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here today for another frequently asked question, and this one is in regards to dehydrating herbs, and specifically about, do I leave the stems on when I'm dehydrating my herbs? And the answer to that is simply yes. Now what I have here is holy basil, or also known as tulsi. Now this one's an easy one because the stems are pretty tender anyway, and they will usually dehydrate up really well. Really, no matter when you pick your herbs, how far back you're cutting them, and how woody or thick that the stems are, I still will put all of those herbs as is onto my trays. So right here I have some catnip that some of it has already started to flower, and it's still usable this way, but that also means I'm going to end up with thicker and also woodier stems. However, as long as I have space, I will still pile those herbs on there. One thing the stems will do actually is help keep the herbs, especially when you're talking about trays like this. Now I heard with the Excalibur you don't have as much headspace this way to pile the herbs on the same way like you do the Nesco type trays. Anyway, I can pile my herbs on pretty high as long as it doesn't lift the next tray up too much. If it does a little bit, it's no big deal. It just allows more airflow. Having the stems on there does help keep all the leaves more separated anyway. But if you're using an Excalibur or you're just limited on trays or space and you've got a lot to do, you can, especially with ones that are thick and harder like this one, you can go ahead and strip the leaves off that way and then put them on your tray. A lot of these stems are not going to fully dry. Some of them will, but not all of them will. Now in the case as with the catnip and the mojito mint that I have back here that I'm going to dehydrate up as well, since I'm using those in teas anyway, I'm not using it as a culinary herb like I would oregano, thyme, rosemary, and sage, then I don't mind as long as the stems fully dry. I will just break them up like I do with the rest of the herbs and put them in my jar to use in teas, because they're going to brew up just fine and you're still going to have a lot of the same benefits in the stems as you do in the leaves and or flowers. But as I'm sure you've already figured out, the leaves are going to dry a lot quicker than a lot of the stems will. So if you're getting to that point where you really want to get the herbs off there, you don't want to over dehydrate them and possibly damage the nutrients and the benefits in them, once the leaves on your stems are fully dry, then simply strip them off. I strip off the dry leaves like that, just like I showed earlier. Then I will go ahead and crush these up and use them and put them in my jar. But if my stem is not fully dry, then what I can do is either put it back on the dehydrator with some other things and let it finish drying, and then add it to the jar if it's something I'm going to use for tea, or I can use it directly in tea that very night, which is usually what I do. I very rarely put under dried stems back on the dehydrator. I'm going to be more apt to want to use them right away. And then again, when it comes to culinary herbs, I usually just strip out, especially rosemary. Sometimes when you cut it way back, you get a very woody stem, and sage. A lot of times those parts I will simply compost. And I don't add those to my culinary herbs or my mixed greens blend or anything like that, because when added to different recipes, they can be very hard. They don't break up very well. But if the stems are tender enough, like you'll find on your holy basil or just basil in general, and you can break it up small enough, then yes, I do go ahead and put that in the jar with any of my culinary herbs. So again, with the mojito mint, same thing. I just pile it on there like that, and then once these are dry, I will simply strip the leaves off the stems or crush everything together if the stem's fully dry, which a lot of these are thick enough. I don't think they will dry very quickly, so they'll most likely just get used in my catnip mojito mint tea for that night. So if you've been following me for any amount of time, you'll know that I have my favorite herbal tea blends that I make, but I'm always mixing things up and then using them in different ways. Now typically our very favorite tea is simply peppermint tea, and that will be fresh peppermint at this time of the year or dried peppermint the rest of the time of year. So I like to dehydrate up a lot of peppermint for making our peppermint tea. However, a couple other tea blends that I'm really enjoying is the lemon balm and orange mint, and I've talked about that before. I usually use equal parts, and then especially lately to help kind of calm my nerves with all the stress going on is the 50-50 blend, or 1 part to 1 part blend of the mojito mint and the catnip. Now I usually do not dehydrate up my mojito mint, but it does just blend so nicely with the catnip and is a very calming tea, especially to drink in the evenings, but I'll drink it during the day too. So I've been doing a lot of that, and this is why I've decided to go ahead and dehydrate up the mojito mint. And instead of keeping these herbs separate like I normally would, I'm going to mix these ones together. I already have a lot of catnip dehydrated up and stored separately for using in other types of blends like my pain remedies and so on. But this is going to be a specific blend that I can have all throughout the year when I'm feeling especially stressed out over whatever's going on. Just a very calming, relaxing tea. Valerian, as I said before, is also good. I recommend you go back and watch, though my this and that videos are somewhat dated because they are real specific for the time of the year or week even. I do talk about a lot of things that are applicable all through the year. So I'm going to link back down below to the video I did about making this tea. And I also in that video had put a list of, in text within the video, of some other calming type herbs that you can grow and use to help if you're very stressed out or are struggling with anxiety. I'll probably eventually do a separate video just on herbs for that so I can have it be more comprehensive, but until I get to that, for now you can go ahead and go back and check out that video. All right, well that's it for this frequently asked question. I got another one to shoot hopefully today, so I hope you enjoyed this video and that you're enjoying the series as a whole. I'll also link to that full series, the FAQ, down below. The questions come in a lot, mostly about vinegar, herbs, but many other things as well. All right, well thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.